Hey, World History. Welcome to U11-L2, Basics of the Age of Exploration, Part 1. This is Miss Corey. All right, let's get started. Got a lot to talk about today. So make sure that you do U11-L1 before the slideshow. So U11-L1 gives you some basics about the age of exploration that I'm just going to skip over today. So if you're watching this, haven't done U11-L1, go back, do that one first, okay? So about this unit, it's a little different than the other unit. So it's only 5 days long. Because it's only 5 days long, there is not a study guide or a summative. But because of this, I've also bumped up the point values for a lot of the formative assignments. So for example, L1, that was worth 15 points. L2, which is this video right now, and also the next video, L3, are going to be worth just the normal 5 points. But there's a video guide that goes with it. So make sure you are filling out the video guide as you are watching this video and then the next video. And that video guide is worth 12 points. So there's 23 vocab words, so kind of divide that by half. It'd be about 12 points. Then lesson 4 is Aluda Equiano reading. That one will be worth 10 points. And then U11-L5, sorry, that should say 5, the Story of China Edpuzzle video, that will be worth 10 points. So, learning targets. There's a lot of learning targets for this one. So, students can explain the social, political, and economic changes in Europe that led to transoceanic exploration and colonization. We'll talk a lot about this in Unit 13 as well. Also to describe the interactions and negotiations between the Americans, like the Mayans, Aztecs, and Incas, and European explorers, as well as the consequences. So we talked about this a little bit in Unit 10 with the Inca Rebellion video. We'll talk about it a little bit more today as well. Also to assess the social and demographic impacts of the Columbian exchange on Europe, the Americas, and Africa. So we'll talk about this again in Unit 13, but you're also going to get it in U11-L4, Aluda Equiano reading. So Aluda Equiano is this dude right here. The passage of the story that you will read of his is his experience going from the west coast of Africa to Barbados as a newly enslaved person. Another learning target is to compare and contrast the forms of slavery and other non-free labor systems among African, European, and Arab societies, analyze the cause and consequences of chattel slavery in the Atlantic. So again, you're going to get that with lesson 4 with this primary source reading. Another one is to analyze the varied responses in China to increasingly worldwide economic and cultural exchanges. So this one you will do with L5. So you will watch part of the video by this guy right here. His name is Michael Wood. He's part of the BBC, so it's the British TV channel thingy. And so I just did a little snippet of his video, and it talks about kind of China's own age of exploration that they had. So yeah, it's not even a video by me. So look at that. You get to actually watch an actual good video. So your job today is you're going to watch this Edpuzzle and answer the questions. Questions in blue text are the questions I want you to answer directly on the Edpuzzle. Make sure you are following the U11-L2 and L3 video guide. Okay. So instead of a study guide, just a video guide. And important concepts on the video guide will be in red text, just like with the study guides. And of course, if you have questions, let us know. We are here to help you. So just a reminder, 95% of you are super awesome at taking notes on the study guides, or in this case, a video guide. So just a reminder, you can totally copy and paste my notes from the slideshows, okay? To do that, all you need to do is go into the resource folder, and every unit has a resource folder, okay? Usually it's like that pink color. It's like magenta, red. I don't know what you would call it. It's that color. If you go into there, there is a bunch of links, and all those links go to my slideshows. So if you want, you can just copy and paste the definitions from the slideshows and then paste them onto your study guide or video guide. So some of you are above and beyond superb students. You write your own definitions from my slides. You guys are awesome, by the way. I see you. I enjoy grading your study guides. That is awesome because it's also great practice of note-taking skills. But just a reminder to The people who like to copy and paste from Google, you can just copy and paste from my own notes. So again, if you copy and paste from Google or plagiarize or use AI on your study guide, you will get a 0. If that is you, just go copy and paste the definitions from my slides. It's even easier than Googling. All right, so heads up for today as well. We're going to talk about some very heavy topics like racism and enslavement. We're getting into the time period, so about 1500s to the modern day, where pseudoscience, which is false sciences and beliefs, and societal racism comes into relevance. These false and harmful ideologies will be part of all the units until the end of the semester. And as always, if you have questions, let us know. So, first question for you today. Name 2 pieces of information that you remember or stick out to you the most from U11-L1. All right, let's start off with probably the most famous name during this time period, Christopher Columbus. So, he took a voyage from Spain in 1492. He landed in the Bahamas. So, some textbooks, including textbooks that I have read in my own school days, say that he thought he landed in India. That is not true. Okay. He knew he was not in India. Okay. He had the navigation tools and measurement of Earth's circumference to know that he was not in India. Instead, he met the Taino people. So the Taino people are the native people who occupied what is now modern day Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. When Christopher Columbus arrived in 1492, there were about 1 to 2 million Tainos living on all those islands. They're an agricultural society, so they grew things such as yams, tobaccos, cassava, and peppers. So here's kind of a distribution map of the Taino people when Columbus would have arrived. All right, so by 1520, only a few thousand Taino people were still alive. Most of them died by enslavement, starvation, and disease brought by the Europeans. And by 1550, almost all Taino people were wiped out. Still today, there are people of the Taino people not known of what their numbers actually are, but there are groups of Taino people living in places such as New York, Florida, New Jersey, and Puerto Rico. All right, so some online websites, like this one right here, say that Columbus found America. But I'll ask you this question. Did Columbus actually found America? And why do you say that? No, he did not find America, okay? There were thousands of native tribes already calling North America home. So, just to put into perspective of how many tribes there were living in North and Central America before Christopher Columbus arrived. So, today, there are still 574 tribes in the United States, 68 in Mexico, 826 in Central America and the Caribbean countries, and 630 in Canada. And this does not even include South America, okay? There are millions of people living in North and South America, so no way did Christopher Columbus find it. There has been people living in North and South America for tens of thousands of years. So if you are curious more about all the tribes in North and Central America, here is some cool maps that I found about tribal nations. So here's the one in Mexico, and then in the Caribbean islands as well, so you can see the Tainos. So, European explorers, they did not come to North and South America to make friends. They came to steal land, and oppress the natives. So, religion was used as a weapon. So, explorers did not care if the natives converted or not to Christianity. They used Christianity as a weapon. They wanted natives to convert to Christianity, which would then lead to suppressing their own culture. And also, the new religion of Christianity for the natives would mean that there were new rules that those natives had to follow, such as giving money to the church and obeying the church hierarchy. Okay? So that is how religion was used as a weapon against the natives. So Columbus had his men read out a decree to all the Taino people in the middle of the night, one night. And in that decree, he said these things. He said that the Taino land was now part of Spain. All the Taino people had to convert to Christianity, and all Taino people were under Spanish rule. And anyone who would define this would be killed. So here's two questions for you. What's the problem with speaking to the natives at night? And what's the problem with speaking to the natives in Spanish? Yeah, so what's the problem with speaking to the natives at night? It's nighttime. People are asleep. Okay? We're humans. We sleep at night. No one's around to listen. And probably the other really big problem with this is speaking to them in Spanish. He just arrived. The natives don't know how to speak Spanish or listen to Spanish. They don't know it. So, because of this decree, Columbus would then start to enslave the natives. So we talked about that a bit with Pizarro last unit in the forcement of giving food and like working farms for the Incas. Columbus also enslaved the Taino people and sold them to the Spanish as labor, and also would ship some of them to Spain to show like the royal courts who the native people were that he was enslaving. So again, Columbus enslaved a lot of the native people to work on plantations that Europeans explorers started. So I know in US history we talk a lot about cotton plantations, but through most of Central and South America and into the Caribbean, actually there wasn't cotton plantations. It was mostly sugarcane. Cotton plantations were typically just in where the United States region is. So sugarcane was the main crop for a lot of these plantations. They also enslaved the natives to work in gold mines, and Columbus also allowed his men to sexually abuse and murder the Taino women. So there are lots of other examples of the dehumanizing and unjust ways Europeans treated natives during the late 1400s into the early 1500s and even beyond that. These were just Columbus's examples. Just one conquistador. So if you want to learn more, feel free to contact me. I have some more resources. So we talked about conquistadors last unit too, okay, in Mesoamerica and South America, but I never truly defined who they were. So here's a question for you. What do we know about conquistadors from Unit 10? So conquistadors are an explorer from Spain who came to North America to find riches and resources. Spain was the first European country to settle the Americas. That's why there's a lot of like cities in Florida with Spanish names. And also there's some like states that have Spanish names as well. So that's the reason for that. So colonies. Conquistadors also had the primary goal of setting up a colony. Now, I know a lot of you are probably familiar with like the 13 colonies of the United States, which is an example of a colony. That was just a British colony. So a colony is lands that are controlled by another farther away country. And the purpose of a colony is to gain resources and claim land for glory. Now we get into God, glory, and gold. So what did European countries send explorers to North and South America for? 3 things: God, glory, and gold. So let's start with the first one, God. On the surface level, explorers wanted to save native souls and convert to Christianity, but this was false. They had no intent to do that. The truth was that they wanted to use Christianity as a means of suppressing the natives, and those who disobeyed would get killed. The Catholic Church also gave explorers money to take over foreign land. Glory. European countries were in competition with each other. Okay? So European countries were in battles on the mainland in Europe. So remember, Europe, it's not small, but it's compact. There's a lot going on in Europe, and there's no more land being created. So European countries were running out of resources on the mainland. So they needed to expand into new territories. They needed to steal resources from other parts of the world. And more resources that they had meant that the more powerful the country would be. And this is the same reason when we talk about African imperialism too in Unit 13. It's going to be the same thing. And then, of course, gold. Okay, so gold equals money. Money equals wealth. Wealth equals more power in Europe. Central and South America had gold and other precious metals. So that's why Europeans wanted to come to exploit their gold. All right, let's talk about Francisco Pizarro. So we talked about him before in Unit 10, but we'll talk a little bit more about him. So as you know, he's a conquistador, and he landed in Peru in 1532, and that would have been right in the heart of the Inca Empire. He had an army of about 200 Spanish men, and as we found out with the Great Inca Rebellion, also a few thousand native allies. So he captured Inca Emperor Atahualpa, and he did so successfully that Atahualpa even had an army of about 30,000 unarmed men, and Francisco Pizarro was even still able to capture Atahualpa with his not as many soldiers that were with him. So Pizarro, he's like, hey, I got your emperor, Atahualpa. You can have him back, but you must fill one room of gold and 2 rooms of silver as a ransom. Okay? So the Inca Empire was like, oh my gosh, we got to get our emperor back. Sure, fine, whatever. We will fill a room of gold and 2 rooms of silver and just give us our emperor back. So that's what the Inca did. They filled 1 room of gold and 2 rooms of silver as ransom to get back their emperor. But Pizarro ended up killing Atahualpa anyways. Yeah, that's how brutal he was. So the mixing of blood. So when the Spanish conquered southern United States, Mexico, Central America, and South America, and settled colonies, there were no women that came with them on these ships over here. Okay? So Spanish conquistadors had babies with native women. These children and their children after that would be considered something called mestizos, okay, which literally means mixed. So during this time period, the Spanish practiced pseudoscience and racism. Now, some of you are probably like, I've never heard of pseudoscience before. So here's kind of the overall definition of pseudoscience. So pseudoscience are practices and ideas not based on scientific studies and are mixed with racist ideologies. So the Spanish thought of their mestizos offsprings as not as pure blood, okay? So they treated mestizos as subhuman. And the Spanish even went so far as to make a hierarchy of who was more pure, depending on their parents. And this hierarchy would be called castas, which literally translates to castes. So here is a pyramid of the castas. So at the very top, you would have the peninsulares. So those were the Spanish that were born in Spain, and then they would come and live in North or South America. Below them were the Creoles, who were people who were born in North or South America, but to Spanish parents. And then after that were the mestizos. So those were people who had like a mix of Spanish or native heritage. And then after that would be the native population. And then here would be the enslaved persons. So this hierarchy was how society was run in the Spanish colonies. So much so that they had like maps and charts, such as this one here, of the hierarchy of who was who depending on their parents. So you can kind of see here. I mean, this is how Spanish society was structured, was all around this racist ideology. So the next thing we'll talk about is encomienda. So encomienda literally translates from Spanish to English as parcel, like a parcel of land. It was a system under the Spanish where conquistadors, where they forced natives and other non-pure blood Spanish to farm and mine. So pretty much it was another form of slavery. So in encomienda, it was mostly natives, but it also could be mestizos or African descendants. And the conquistadors promised the Spanish king and queen to treat their workers fairly, right? Because they were good Christians. Slavery shouldn't have been a thing for Christians to do. So they promised their king and queen that they would be good people and not enslave anybody and treat them so nicely. But those conquistadors were liars. Okay? They physically abused them, forced them to work in dangerous mines. So that's a lot of heavy information that we did today. So let's stop for now. So wrap up. Today we talked about conquistadors, colonies, God, Glory, and Gold, Francisco Pizarro, Atahualpa, Mestizo, and Encomienda. Next up, you're going to watch U11-L2 Basics of the Age of Exploration Part 2. Keep filling out your video guide. And of course, if you have questions, if you have comments, let us know. Today was some heavy information, so please let us know. All right, thank you for watching.